Herzlich willkommen bei einem Crop FM Spezial mit dem Titel Crop Circles and Military Interactions. In dieser Ausgabe hören wir Andy Buckley, der wie jedes Jahr auch 2007 wieder in Wiltshire unterwegs war, um dem Geheimnis der Kornkreise ein Stück näher zu kommen. So habe auch ich ihn im Juli 2004 in einem außergewöhnlichen Kornkreis in der Nähe von Silbury Hill zum ersten Mal getroffen. Andy beschäftigt sich schon seit vielen Jahren mit dem Kornkreisphänomen, als auch mit UFO Sichtungen und hat ein sehr umfangreiches Archiv von faszinierenden Videos, die sogenannte Lichtkugeln und andere Phänomene über den Feldern Wiltshires zeigen. Die Saison 2007 war neben vielen erstaunlichen Formationen vor allem geprägt durch seltsame Vorfälle, in die sehr oft auch das Militär und andere nicht näher bekannte private Organisationen involviert waren. So gab es vergangenes Jahr viele Begegnungen mit schwarzen Helikoptern, die auch ich schon über den Kornfeldern Wiltshires kreisen sah. Selten oder nie zuvor aber gab es meines Wissens nach Vorfälle, in denen beim Auftauchen dieser Maschinen erhöhte Strahlungswerte gemessen wurden und Menschen, die sich währenddessen im Kornkreis darunter befanden, plötzlich über Übelkeit und Kopfschmerzen klagten. So geschehen im Juli 2007. Aber da ist noch einiges mehr, über das Andy Buckley in diesem ca. 30-minütigen Telefoninterview berichtet, das im November 2007 aufgezeichnet wurde. Ein Crop FM Spezial über seltsame Vorgänge rund um das alljährliche Auftauchen der sogenannten Kornkreise in Südengland, rechtzeitig zum Start der Saison 2008, in der es in England und Italien bereits erste Exemplare zu bestaunen gab. Im Netz und auf den Feldern.
Going back to yes, if you want to know about the military activity, I arrived down in Wiltshire around about the 14th of July, and over the following couple of weeks, I spent quite a lot of time, in the formation, which was still quite new. The first week, I was in the formation, doing research and taking photographs, and while I was there, it was obvious that there was an unusually high amount of military activity. I do spend a lot of time in Wiltshire, and notice that it is a military training area. So there's always going to be a lot of helicopter activity. But on this occasion, it seemed to be the helicopters were focusing on the formation, and what the first series of incidents happened on the Monday. Yeah, it would be July the 16th. That would be Monday, July the 16th, 2007. That's when I first noticed helicopters. There were quite a variety of helicopters. I'm familiar with most of the helicopters that fly around there. These were all army helicopters. There was sort of kind of intimidating people, and people were some people became quite nervous and left the formation. I filmed most of this activity. I've got most of it on video. I was also carrying a piece of equipment which was a dose radiator which measures background levels of radiation, and I'd noticed that throughout the formation there were kind of pockets of the device that I was using measures units of radiation, what are called microsievens, and it, generally speaking, you don't get. I mean, it's a scale of 0 really going up to quite high levels, probably up to 1,000 on the scale, and normally you don't get more than 2 or 3, but I was picking up, it was jumping from between 40 and 60 microsievens. Quite high. Its danger level is around about 250 microsievens, and if it reaches that level, the device emits a kind of continuous tone, which is a warning tone. And this device is actually used in nuclear power stations to measure levels of radiation, with leaks. So if there's a radiation leak, it will warn the personnel to get out of the place.
So this thing showed about 50, whatever the unit now is, and
yes, it was very. I mean, it was quite sort of. I mean, most of the formation was well below 10 or between 10, 5 and 10, which is normal. But in some parts, in pockets, it was jumping up to between 50 and 60, which is quite unusual, really. I mean, I've not really noticed that in many formations.
This level of radiation was there right when you got there.
Well, it was there on the 14th of July, and it continued throughout probably the following week, and then the levels tended to drop. But what I noticed was that when one of the helicopters approached, which flew very low, I was kind of, holding this meter in front of me, and the levels jumped significantly higher over the 100 mark. Now, the first helicopter that caused this reaction was a Gazelle military helicopter, and it flew extremely low. I mean, I thought at one point it was going to land in the formation. It was that low, and I mean, I was actually filming it. The helicopter had been flying around at low level for probably around about 10 minutes and making, close approaches. But on this occasion, it came really close, and then the meters kind of jumped up quite high. Now, a lot of people have, interpreted that as this was being emitted by the helicopter, but I didn't actually say that. I never said that. All I said simply was that when certain helicopters approached, it caused a reaction on the rate, this meter. Now, it may be that the helicopters could have produced some form of radiation. On the other hand, it may be that they were interacting with something in the formation or causing the background levels of radiation to rise. I don't know. I mean, I'm just impossible to say. On this first occasion, it was simply an increase in the level on the meter. Now, that was on the Monday. On the Wednesday, however, something quite slightly different happened, because on the 18th of July, I got it at 12:47 p.m. 3 very large helicopters approached, and these were not Army helicopters. They were RAF, presumably RAF, Royal Air Force helicopters. They were, again, I've been misquoted as saying they were black unmarked helicopters. I didn't actually say that. I said that they seemed to be unmarked. I couldn't see any markings on them, and they were dark in colour. Now, mean, I'm not saying they were black in colour. They were dark in colour. They weren't typical, camouflage colour you usually get. I mean, the Apaches are black in colour, and they were quite similar to the Apache, very, very sort of dark grey. And I couldn't see any markings on them. And these three very, very large helicopters, I mean, they were very intimidating. And I identified them as being Merlin helicopters. And they flew down the valley, very low level, and there were quite a lot of people in the formation at the time. And there were three of them. The helicopter in the middle came right down over the formation, similar to what happened before. The other two helicopters circled the formation, so they were kind of all the time they were circling. And the helicopter in the middle would fly very low down and then fly off and then fly down the valley, turn around and repeat this. It kept repeating this manoeuvre, several times. Now, what was interesting is when on the, I think it was the third, I was again, it was affecting the meter again. I noticed it was shooting up again when the middle helicopter came low. It affected the meter. Well, the meter was affected. It seemed to shoot up again, probably to 100 or so, right, around about that level. But on the third occasion it came back, it shot right up. It shot up to between 300 and 400 and set off the alarm. And it actually set off my mobile phone as well, which is interesting. Now,
that's very interesting, yeah.
That's when I noticed, as this went on, and it started from the first approach, there was a gradual, I noticed a gradual physical sensations. The first one was what I describe as sometimes if you're in a car and you've got a hill, a very steep hill, your ears start to fill out. You get this sort of popping sensation.
Yeah, when your ears pop.
Sensation.
Yeah.
Then I got a very significant headache, which appeared, which was started at the side by the ears and kind of spread round to the front. Now this got quite intense, and by the time, and I noticed that a few other people were reacting as well. I kind of looked round, and I mean there were several people standing a few yards away, and they were looking. Everybody was looking at the helicopters, and because they were very low and they were quite frightening, and there were some children in the formation that started crying, and there were quite a few people that backed off, and they started to leave, and I mean, these helicopters are extremely low, and they're very large, and they're very intimidating. And I noticed that I shouted across to one of these. There was a chap standing, and I said, "Can you feel this?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I've got quite a." I said, "I feel quite nauseous, and I said, "Yes, I'm starting to feel." And when the helicopter came over for the third time, this meter jumped up. And I kind of shouted across. I said, "I think we've got to get out of here because, this shouldn't be happening. This meter signifies that there's some very high level of radiation going on here, whatever it is."
Could it be that, I mean, there are, I think they're called psychotronic weapons, which operate. Yeah. Could it be that this was, I mean, would be very outrageous, but that this kind of weaponry was used on the people in this field, and that maybe this electromagnetic radiation also caused your meter to react?
Well, it might be. I mean, what I also noticed was that there was quite a strong smell, which some people have interpreted that the helicopters were spraying out something. I didn't actually see anything being emitted from these helicopters. Things got mixed up.
Okay.
Another event happened later that afternoon involving an Apache helicopter where it did release some kind of agent. But certainly this incident, there was nothing visible released from the helicopter. What I did, I recorded this very high levels of whatever this formation, I can't say. There was quite a strong smell, which was kind of smelled sulphurous. That's the only way. I can't really, it smelled like it wasn't. It was kind of sickly, and I think that's why people started. A couple of people actually vomited. And I did as well quite soon after. And it had a kind of sickly odour, and I think we're already suffering from feeling nauseous as a result of this. Some people have said, "Oh, was it fuel being dumped, or was it from the exhaust fumes of the helicopter?" But I don't agree. I've seen lots of helicopters fly very low, and occasionally you might get some vapors coming out, but it wasn't. It didn't have that kind of smell. It was more like some kind of sulphurous thing, but I didn't see anything. But anyway, the effect was, of course, that people started getting ill, and I was quite ill actually. It took me several hours to recover. Anyway, these helicopters eventually they flew off. After sort of 10 minutes or so, they just flew off, and everybody just was quite sort of sick. And what was happening though? The formation was very large, and this was only happening in the top end of the formation.
Which formation was that, by the way?
This was the Eastfield formation, yeah.
Okay.
Some formation. The lower end of the formation, I got the impression, this effect was very local. It wasn't people down in the lower end of the formation, although they saw the helicopters, they didn't seem to be that affected. It was a very local effect. I think it was it was kind of quite local to where we were standing.
Could it be that certain people in this field were targeted and others not?
It's possible. I have no idea. I'm still making inquiries, as to where these helicopters came from and what we're doing. What happened later in the afternoon, though, was interesting because I was with a colleague of mine from Holland called He's a very, very, very sort of committed researcher, and in fact he brought a new DVD out this year of his film, lots of lights, balls of light and that kind of thing. And I've known this guy for 10 years, and he was with his girlfriend Connie, and he'd been down in Wiltshire for about a week, and
What was his name again?
Well, it's Foeke, Kutscher.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Koutje, Fukukucha, and he comes from Holland, and he's been coming over virtually every year for the last 10 years, and we've got to know each other really well. And he sort of tends to target the Eastfield area with his video camera, and he's filmed lots of very interesting stuff. And on that afternoon, every day he'd set up his video camera in the lay-by overlooking the field. And we were there that afternoon. I told him what had happened during the day, and he set up his camera around about 3 o'clock. And there were several other people. There were probably around about 6 people there, so it quite a lot of witnesses. And about 4 o'clock, we saw an Apache helicopter which approached us from the east, and it was flying between Woodborough Hill and where we were standing in this I should call a silage pit. It's like a lay-by off the road, and it overlooks the Eastfield. And this helicopter flew very, very low between Woodborough Hill and where we were standing. I wasn't really watching it, to be honest. I didn't really have a camera because, I've seen that many helicopters. I was just kind of standing talking to somebody. And suddenly, Foucault shouted to me. He said, look. So we looked round, and the helicopter discharged to what looked like 2 canisters. And they dropped to the ground, and then there was a kind of two pink vapor trails which were dropped, and they dropped from the top of the helicopter to the ground. And we all about half an hour later, we noticed the smell, and it was coming from the direction where we'd seen this happen, and it just spread across to where we were standing, and it's similar to what I'd experienced a few hours earlier with the Merlin helicopters.
So again, this sulfur smell?
Yeah, a kind of sickly smell, although it wasn't as strong.
Yeah.
That was because the wind had dispersed it. But the wind was blowing from that direction, you see, across these fields. So, we smelt, we all smelt this kind of thing, but it didn't really have any effect. I mean, we just noticed it. We didn't really feel ill or anything. I was still recovering from the earlier incident.
And any radiation levels that went higher, or?
No, I didn't actually measure anything for some reason. I kind of didn't do that. I was just kind of, I don't know why, but I didn't notice anything at all.
Did you ever hear anything like that before happening?
This is the first time I've actually registered this, and it happened again. It's happened several times actually. It happened again about a week later with an Apache helicopter that flew. I was actually alone in the formation about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was about a week later, and an Apache appeared just very low down, and it came straight towards me, very, very low. And as it got very close, the alarm threshold went off on the meter, and I filmed it. I got the video camera, so I actually filmed the meter, and I filmed the helicopter, and as it flew very close down towards me, the alarm went off on this meter. The strange thing was that the scale remained at 0, but the alarm went off. Sometimes it will do that. It's just the way the meter's set, but still the alarm will go off if there's any danger. And again, that was that happened to me about a week later.
Last year, 2006, when I was in Wiltshire, I could notice that things were getting tougher, and so this continues this year.
Yeah. I read a report. This is going back to the incident with the 3 helicopters. I wasn't aware that there were 2 other researchers who actually filmed this as well, and they actually put their report on the Crop Circle Connector website, the Eastfield, and they actually filmed a black object which was flying close to the helicopters.
A black object?
Black object, yeah. I didn't see it. Now, they claimed they didn't see it either, but they were taking digital shots or video shots. I'm not sure it's a digital shot, but it appeared on the digital shot when they reviewed the film, and their report on the Crop Circle Connector, and there's actually a photograph of this object. It's a very small black object, but it's interesting because it's very similar to the objects that have been filmed over Eastfield, and they were called Umberto Morrizzoni and somebody called Bibi Bostrom.
So they filmed this object, and you filmed a similar one? Or did I understand?
Well, I don't know, you see, because I haven't really had a chance to look. I got quite a lot of footage of this incident, and I haven't really had a chance to review it because, unfortunately, my video camera failed in a crop circle. I haven't been able to. It's on mini DV. I had to borrow another camera, which was high 8. So what I'm going to do is I've got my camera, and I'm going to go through the footage very carefully to see if I picked up anything, because it's quite conceivable that I did. But they certainly did, and it's on the Crop Circle Connect website with their report. I wasn't aware that they were filming it, but I think they were down in the lower part of the formation. Because if you were standing on the top part, you couldn't actually see the bottom. There was like a hill, so they may have been further down in the formation filming all this. You see, so I was quite pleased because there's obviously other witnesses to this incident, but they didn't describe feeling any sort of physical effects. But that might be because they were down in the other part of the formation. formation. So that's really the story. There must have been some connection with the helicopters, because that was the only occasion when this I noticed this increase in the radiation level.
Yeah,
because there were pockets of radiation levels in the formation, but nothing like this. I mean, the only time I noticed this is when some of the helicopters got quite close. So a friend of mine called David Caton, he's a researcher I've known for a long time. He actually wrote a very interesting report on what I'd experienced, because he's a specialist in that area. He's a scientist. He worked for British Aerospace in this country, and he suggested that it wasn't what he calls ionizing radiation, because ionizing radiation would have probably at that level, as he said, would have probably killed us. I mean, and any pilots on board would have been affected by it. So he's concluded it's not ionizing radiation, but non-ionizing radiation, and it could be some form of infrasound or infrasonic radiation. Which it would cause effects, but it's not the same kind of radiation.
And do you think do you think that this was this was a byproduct of any kind of investigation that was going on?
Yes, because on the Monday morning, you see, this was just get the dates correct, this was on the 16th, I saw, this was before the helicopter activity began. I arrived, I'd kind of walked to the Eastfield and from Woodbury Hill, and arrived there quite early in the morning, just after sort of 9 o'clock, like that. And I noticed that there were some vehicles, some vans, which were parked in this lay-by. This is the same place that I was with Fukukucha when we saw the Apache. And they were unmarked white vans, and they were parked there. And as I walked down to the lay-by, they were being guarded by a person, and I noticed that there were what looked like personnel in the formation. They weren't dressed in military uniform, but they looked quite official. And they were in the formation, and they were doing measurements. They had some, probably similar to what I was carrying, some kind of Geiger counters, and they were also collecting samples and putting them into sort of sealed containers. And I just kind of thought it might have to have something to do with. You see, the thing is that the farm that we're talking about. This year, it's owned by different. Well, say owned. It's been kind of taken over by different people, a different company, and I've noticed certain vehicles around the fields there this year that haven't been there before. So it may be that these vans belong to the farm, but they were obviously gathering samples, and I just kind of walked past these vans to go in the field, and I was stopped, and this guy came up to me and he said, "I'm sorry, you can't go in there." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because we're actually we some of my he said my men were sort of in the field, and until they finish what they're doing, you can't go in." So I said, "Well," and he said, "In any case," he said, "you're not allowed in there, it's private property." So I kind of hung around a bit, and he just stood by one of the vans, didn't say anything. So I kind of walked up to him and started, trying to get a conversation going, and he actually, he did actually use the term. This is a term that stuck in my mind. He said, "I wouldn't advise going." He said, "I wouldn't advise going in the field." He said, "because it's a biohazard." And I said, said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, it's not safe to go in the field. And he said, these personnel that are in there, they're wearing protective gear. And I said, you're joking, you're not serious. He said, he said, if you go in there, you go at your own risk. And I said, well, people have been going in that formation for 2 weeks.
There's crop growing in there. I mean, they are standing in a crop field. This probably is going to be eaten someday. I mean, what did they say about that?
Well, you see, there's been a lot of controversy going on about all this, and what's actually going on with crops, and what's actually going on with the military and everything else. I mean, Levengood, Levengood did he brought out his report on what he'd found with regard to samples we'd taken to Levengood in America, and he did research on it and said there were amazing levels of energy, and quite unique. He'd never observed this kind of thing before. So, it crossed my mind that whatever made the formation, if there were very high levels of something in there, whether it's energy or whatever, it must have affected. It obviously affected the crop. It affected the growth of the crop. It affected the crop, and I'm sure that the company that owns the farm and the company that grows the crop, they must be aware. They must be aware of this. They must be aware that something is happening to the crop, and that to me explains what they were doing. They were getting samples. They're wanting to do their own tests on the crop. I think that's what they were doing. I think they were collecting samples, and that's what they did. They got back to the vans and they put them in the vans, and the vans drove off.
And did you get any idea of who these people were or where they came from?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain I know who they were. I'm pretty certain. I can't prove it, but my own opinion is that they were connected. They were connected to the company that runs this farm, or has something to do with this farm.
What kind of company is that?
Yeah.
What?
The impression I got was that when I spoke to the farmer, I spoke to several people, that they didn't want people going in the formation. They wanted people, to stay out of the fields, and which is unusual for that farm because they've always been very cooperative. They've always allowed people in there, but this year they were very, very, very hostile to people going in. And that seemed to be the sort of impression I got from what I observed. The military were obviously trying to intimidate people, and the farmers were trying to intimidate people. So maybe they were trying to keep people out because it was from a safety, health and safety point of view. I don't know. But Levengood certainly, his research seems to suggest there was some very unusually high levels of radiation or microwave radiation or low, something in there.
Das war eine weitere Ausgabe von Crop FM Spezial. Ich bedanke mich bei Ihnen fürs Zuhören und macht es gut.
bigger star.